Welcome to the Growth and Banter podcast. My name is Blake McCullough, CEO and founder of GMS Media Group, one of Australia's leading digital marketing and advisory firms. This podcast is for anyone looking to learn the insights and strategies from industry leaders and how to build a successful life. Today, we're joined by Allan, author of The Lean Marketing and One-Page Marketing Plan, and he's going to teach his strategies of how to become a number one seller on Amazon. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Allan.
Hey, pleasure to be on. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. We've been in lots of different marketing communities together.
Yeah.
We've also got probably a similar story when it comes to marketing. Yeah. But today is about your story, your books, and particularly the Lean Marketing and the One-Page Marketing Plan.
Yeah.
The One-Page Marketing Plan being the former book, which is, been very successful, sold over 1 million copies, and now just launching the Lean Marketing. So before we get into those books, though, I want to sort of get your story on, how you got into marketing and then all the way through to writing 2 successful books.
Yeah. So, look, I'm not a trained marketer. I'm actually a university dropout, so never did any MBAs or marketing courses or whatever. But I really learnt marketing because it was a necessity. So I started my first business, which was an IT managed service company, and I started it with what Michael Gerber calls an entrepreneurial seizure, right? So I thought, I'm good at IT, so why am I working for this idiot? I'll start my own business, and
if you can do it, I can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Little did I know, I became the idiot boss, right? So by necessity, I needed to get clients in the door and get new business, get new revenue, and so that led me on a probably decade-long journey to really learn marketing, and I did it the difficult way. I attended every conference, I hired mentors, I read every book, and I got little bits of value from each and sort of assembled it that way.
They call it the seminar junkies, right? You sort of go and you get your dopamine hit and buy a course and don't action it.
Well, there was a lot of that for sure. There was some that I did action, some I didn't action, some that was valuable, some that was nonsense, and of all that. And part of my whole journey is like I couldn't find anything that really just took me from A to B. A being a lost tech geek, broke, to being able to reliably and consistently get clients in the door. So when I wrote the One-Page Marketing Plan, I knew how an entrepreneur in my shoes felt, and I wrote the book I wish I had at that time. So I think that's a large part of the success of the book, because it's not theoretical, it's not something I pulled out of the air or whatever. It's based on my hard-won, expensive experience.
And I think from the name itself, it being easy to consume and a one-page marketing plan is much more appealing than a business plan. Yeah. And I know, when I started the business, my first attempt at starting a business, I did the mistake of writing a business plan without even knowing what the hell I was doing. Yeah. So it's the simplicity in a complex world, I think, is a really huge benefit. But what do you think has been, the cornerstone to the success for the One-Page Marketing Plan over time?
Yeah, so it's a strong hook. So, hey, I can do a marketing plan in one page, because typically when you think of a marketing plan, you think, wow, tons of pages, difficult, need to hire a consultant, all of that sort of stuff. And I was actually there. That's from my own experience. I thought, as a geek who wanted to grow his business, we need to put together a marketing plan. And I did hire a consultant, and we did spend ages on pricing and positioning and put together a plan. We had spreadsheets and all of that sort of thing. And of course, I never did anything with it because it's this big, long theoretical plan. So a large part of it was my own experience. So I wanted to create a plan that someone could do literally in a single page, easy to share, easy to update when you get better or more information. So you're developing a website, you can share your marketing plan with your web developer. Your team is all on one page. You can't do that with a 50-page plan or long spreadsheets and documents and things like that. So I think that's a lot of the magic behind it as well.
I think it's phenomenal because over the years, 8 years now with our agency GMS, I think the market's changed so much. Back in the day, it was a lot harder to assess and have the tools to really assess a business.
Yeah.
Today, we actually provide like growth assessments, and we'll actually give an actionable report at the end of that with a scorecard that they can implement themselves. You know, it's a no obligation. They're getting advice from it.
Yeah.
It's a holistic service. It's, you know, we're looking at the creative, the web, the advertising, and then, you know, they can easily implement in that business tomorrow. So I think the sort of easy to consume pieces of marketing seems to work really well today.
Well, the other thing, it's importantly at the center of it, it's a tool, right? And I can't remember the name of the guy who said it, but he said, if you want to teach someone, don't give them information, give them a tool that they can use. Yeah. So I think that's a large part of the magic of it as well. Hey, this is a practical tool that we can print out or do digitally or whatever, and we'll get a result at the end of it, rather than a textbook and here's what you do or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely right, absolutely right. And what's probably the, you know, within your new book, Lean Marketing, how does that differ from the one-page marketing plan?
Yeah, so the one-page marketing plan is, let's get clear, let's get structured about our marketing strategy so that we're all on the same page, we know what we're doing, all of that sort of stuff. Lean marketing is about, okay, let's take that plan, let's implement it practically. How do we get it going in real life? And so I talk about tools, assets and processes that you need to implement marketing from a lean marketing perspective. And the whole point of lean marketing is you can do less stuff but have a much bigger impact. So, and I don't write books, like I don't pump out books every year, it's just too hard. I only write a book when I absolutely have to. And, you know, I kept seeing in the marketplace more, post more often, spend more, do more complicated and more weird stuff and all of that. And then when I looked at the best marketers in the world, they had a very lean approach to marketing. They were doing one or two things very, very well, going really deep. They weren't doing 1,000 things. They weren't, you know, had their focus spread in 100 different directions. And so that led me to create lean marketing, to really, hey, how do we create focus and how do we reduce all the unnecessary stuff that you don't need and create a marketing implementation engine that really works, that's lean, that's without all the crap and fluff and excess that you don't need.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. And it's almost like one comes before the other, because, you know, today, you know, I speak to so many businesses. Like I said, we do these sort of growth consults, audits, recommendation reports before we even consider working with them. It's almost like doing due diligence on each other. The plan, I feel, comes first to uncover the gaps and the inefficiencies. A lot of people today think that they can just go to an agency and go, a website's my problem and I'm going to build this website and all of a sudden get customers. Or I've built this new website and I'm just going to go speak to an ad agency and I'm going to switch on ads, and then that's going to get me leads or sales, and then all my problems are going to be solved. But without having a report, without knowing the inefficiencies, and I do believe that there is an order of priority in which things should get done. And of course, you know, there are exceptions to the rule. But having a plan in place to understand what is the action and what is the plan of attack, and then what to focus on first, so you're not throwing the kitchen sink at it, you know? You know, and if that's maybe doing a one-page website first, then going on and testing some Facebook ads after, versus trying to build a Rolls Royce of a system, then, you know, that's the way business owners should think. So what do you think? I mean, the takeaways for some of the lessons you've got out of the one-page marketing plan and lean marketing, what are some of the mistakes that brands do make, and then what would be the recommendations if, you know, if someone was starting either now or looking to revitalize their business?
Yeah, so I'll touch on something that you said around agencies, because some people have thought that I'm anti-agency, all of that sort of thing.
I'm actually anti-agency.
Good.
Our copy is all like, we are the anti-ad agency guys, because we do way more consulting than we actually do ads.
Nice.
Like 10 years ago, but it's just the game's changed.
The game has changed, and I say the game of the generalist marketing agency is over, where, hey, we do everything for everyone and all of that sort of stuff. But as an agency owner, your dream client is someone that's very clear on their target market, very clear on their messaging, they've got an offer that converts, they do lead nurturing, all of that, and then they hand that off to you and say, all right, great, help me with my ads, or help me with my Google ads or Meta ads, or whatever it is. And the worst clients that you can possibly get are people who, like, here, just save me. Like, we don't know anything. We don't know our clients.
Sorry, true.
our market is everyone, right? So, and so we work with a lot of agencies to put some of these tools in place because then they're going to get a lot more of their dream clients. If your client comes and they're clear on their market, clear on their messaging, clear on the media that they want to use, all of that sort of stuff, that's going to be a dream client that you really love to work with. They're going to get a good result. You're going to be able to deliver a good result. Whereas the agencies that promise, hey, we're everything for everyone, it's just they're taking on mission impossible. And unfortunately, they don't have Tom Cruise on staff, so it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's hard to scale. You know, if you're the business owner in an agency and you're the one doing the consultations and all the sales, very hard to delegate that out and build a sales team when you are trying to deliver a solution for everybody and every single solution out there as well. So what we found is sort of the winning formula to what works for us, and it might not work for everybody, is focus on that one specific vertical. For us, it's advertising, paid media, it's omni-channel. And then the supporting services around that, which shouldn't be neglected, that we have the ability to advise on, we work with strategic partners. So we've got 80 plus strategic partners that we'll loop in. So if we bring someone on and go, cool, your main objective is to grow the business and advertising is a big part of that. But, your website might need updating, your copy might need updating, you're going to need ongoing creatives. So here's our recommended partners and let's project manage that for you. So the advisory piece is super key, and I think that's what brands are needing much more today than ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And with the lean marketing, how's that going for you? Because I know you've sold 1 million copies with the one-page marketing plan. Is that catching up to it?
It's getting there. It's going really, really strong. The feedback has been really positive. Cool. The reviews are really strong and positive as well. So I've been really, really happy with it. It's great. I think it's really struck a chord. It's come at the right time, I think. Like, you can have right book but wrong time, but I think this is the time when people are feeling a lot of overwhelm. They keep getting told to do more. The problem is you're not doing enough, right? That's what everyone's telling you, or you're not spending enough, or you're not posting often enough, and all of that sort of thing. And it's just freaking exhausting. Like people trying to run a business then, and it's just exhausting to be told all of that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, way too much saturation, too many options. Lots of shiny objects, lots of different tools, AI, list goes on. It is like it already was complicated 10 years ago. And I think it is always going to be complicated. It's just one of those things with technology. It's a gift and a curse. Totally. It allows us to be able to create businesses like digital marketing, but at the same time, it allows us also to get stuck in the trenches with the decisions to make because there's just so much complexity out there. But I think it's a great. I'm looking forward to reading it. Firstly, haven't read it, so hopefully I can. And for viewers, this is what it looks like: lean marketing, and one-page marketing plan. There it is. So go out and buy it. And where would people buy it?
Well, wherever good books are sold, as I usually say, but it's on Amazon. It's very strong on Audible. People love it on audio. So Audible, Amazon, wherever books are sold.
And to become a number one bestseller on Amazon, that's there's a lot of people out there, and I think like having a book as a personal brand authority is a really, really powerful tool. You see a lot of big, agency owners in multiple services having, themselves as the authority, but also leaning in on a book to showcase their knowledge. How does one go about, one, writing a book, and two, publishing it, and three, becoming a number one seller on Amazon?
So I'll cover writing. So I think for a good non-fiction, I mean, I don't know fiction books very well, but non-fiction books, I think you've got to have a very, very strong framework. When you have a look at all the best-selling non-fiction books, at the core, they have a very strong framework. Like, my friend Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First, right? It's got the Profit First framework. Michael Gerber, he's got the E-Myth framework. Gino Wickman, he's got the Traction EOS framework.
So that's a popular one.
So at the core of really good non-fiction, especially in the business space, which is what I know, is a strong framework that you can implement. And that becomes the cornerstone of your book. It becomes the chapters of the book. It becomes the modules of your course. It becomes, the coaching or consulting if you deliver that. So that the concept, I think you just can't outrun that. It's like if you have a weak concept or a weak hook or a weak framework, it's just going to be an uphill battle. So similar to like having a product where the offer just doesn't, it's not a good offer, doesn't convert. So in a very similar way. And I think books are one of the products that I come closest to being a pure meritocracy, because you can sell a few 100,000 copies of a book just because, you know, you're Gary V or you've got a big platform or whatever, but it's not going to be a perennial seller that will sell for years and years and decades unless it's really truly good and people share it and love it and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think with some of those like big celebrity or, you know, influential people, they can put their name to any product and it's going to do well, right?
Yeah.
Because they've already built that personal brand.
Well, it'll do well initially. It'll have that big pop, and yes, they'll sell a few 100,000 copies or whatever, but then it'll come back down and it'll peter out. Whereas the perennial sellers, the ones that sell consistently over many, many years, they've got a very, very strong core framework at the center of it.
Yeah, fair enough. And, you know, putting pen to paper and, you know, getting into that environment, having those creative juices flowing, is there a thing called writer's block?
No, there isn't. Just like there isn't a thing called plumber's block, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
So writer's block is just like, hey, I think my stuff is crap, which it will be in the beginning. So whenever I'm writing, I'm never sitting down to a blinking cursor and just deciding what to write. The way I view writing is we're filling in blanks. So we've come up with the framework, the core concept of the book. We've got outlines. We've got the things that we want to fill in. We know what chapters are going to go. We know how things are going to flow. And of course, during the editing process and writing process, you might move things around, but you've got a very strong idea of the framework.
Yep.
And then we're just filling in the blanks. So you're never writing, just sitting down and, all right, what do I creatively write now? So so a lot of it is front loaded, where you're working on the concept, on the framework, on the outline and getting that right. And then we're filling in the blanks.
Maybe that's a third book, the 1-page book plan.
Maybe.
Because I had a lead gen book. I wouldn't call it a book per se. Alexi helped me with it back in the day. Good friend and copywriter. Yeah. And where I spoke at an event with Mitch Harper, ex-co-founder of BigCommerce, or I guess still is involved in it, but I know it sort of went into IPO. And we did about it would have been an hour and a half, 2 hour presentation that was filmed, recorded. Then we sent that to get transcribed and then turned that into a marketing book. So there are other ways of sort of writing and publishing books from a marketing point of view.
For sure.
I mean, I probably wouldn't do it again in terms of if I was going to build a personal brand book.
Yes.
But from a lead gen exercise of, you know, promoting something online, more of like an ebook or, and I did get that printed. What's your advice around someone maybe not wanting to put pen to paper or not thinking that they are a good writer?
Yeah, well, exactly as you say. So you need to kind of start with what's the actual goal of the book. If it's just a lead gen book, totally legitimate to get a copywriter or a ghostwriter, whatever, write it for you, put pen to paper, just quickly pump something out. And in reality, probably very few people will even crack it open, which is totally fine. It's just,
that's right.
It's just something that we're using as lead gen, no problem. But if it's going to be core to your personal brand, that's probably something that you want to do yourself. You can definitely get help with writing and editing, and, you know, good editors are worth their weight in gold. They'll be like, you know, this doesn't really make sense. Maybe shift this to there or whatever. So there's different types of editing. There's developmental editing, there's copy editing, there's line editing and all of that sort of thing. So you can definitely get a lot of help with writing. And really the best writing is very conversational. Like it's not academic writing. Like there are books that have awesome concepts and very, very strong frameworks, but the writing is just so hard to get through. It's just academic. It's kind of the professional sounding, using long sentences and things like that, and they're just a chore to get through. But
yeah, I know the ones you mean. They're difficult. It almost turns you off reading, you know?
It does. But just the strength of the concept potentially gets you through. But rather than putting your readers through all of this pain, if you just write the way that you speak, and everyone can have a conversation for an hour with someone, you know, and convey a concept or whatever else. So write how you speak. I think that's one of the best hacks to good writing.
And build that, yeah. So it's the same as, how you should be doing any marketing in that instance, right? Telling a great story is going to connect, and being authentic within the book. And probably a reason why I like autobiography so much, because it's literally the insight in someone's story, and that is unique, not very easy to replicate someone else's story.
Yeah, and that's a large part of both of my books. I weave a lot of my own story into a lot of extent they're autobiographical, right? So they could have easily been textbooks, which would be just boring to tears.
Yeah.
But I was very deliberate. I wanted to weave story. I wanted narrative, because I know the more interesting I make it, the more likely someone is going to read through it. That's same as if you're running ads. The best ads are actually just interesting content.
Exactly right. Yeah, like it's a transaction. You have to be giving at least some bits of valuable information for them to build that trust. And I think, for me, aside from having, a sort of a book that I've put pen to paper, aside from that little lead gen marketing book, which was many years ago, the information in it now would be redundant.
Yep.
Obviously podcasts are an amazing way to showcase personal building, but a lot of our ads are story-based. And before we even bring a brand on, like I said, it's all about giving value first. And it's that trust-based selling, I think, is the most important thing you can do in a service-based business, because there is less trust today. There's saturation, there's competition, there's scamming. In Australia being one of the richest per capita countries in the world, we are getting targeted as a nation with a lot of telemarketing and scamming going on. So the trust, not only from an industry point of view, but also just generally online, is diminishing. So what do you feel some of the biggest pain points are with customers today, and particularly with everything that's going on in the digital world in 2024?
So in lean marketing, the book is 9 principles of lean marketing. The very first one covers exactly what you said. So, the volume has been turned right up. People are making bigger and bigger claims. There's, advertising that feels kind of scammy or cheesy, crazy promises, all of that sort of thing. So I liken that to pollution, and economists call pollution and negative externality. So if there's a factory spewing smoke into the community, that's harming the community or
suffocating them.
Exactly. But there can also be positive externalities, right? So, for example, from the balcony of my house, there's a beautiful garden that my neighbour maintains, and they're in the garden all the time. They've got a nice water feature. They spend heaps of time weeding it and all of that. Now, it didn't cost me anything to do that. So that's a positive externality that, I enjoy that beautiful garden. And I think that's really the first cornerstone and lean marketing. We need to create our advertising to be a positive externality, meaning that even people who never buy from us, when they see our advertising, it's content that they actually like, that they consume, that they enjoy. It's not kind of the interruption and the spam and all of that stuff that annoys and interrupts and creates a lot of noise and pollution in the space. So we want our advertising to be so valuable that potentially people would even pay to receive it. So we've seen the rise of paid email newsletters, right? Yep. So people are now subscribing to get certain content. So your email newsletter, you may not charge anything for it, but it should be so valuable that someone might potentially do so.
Yeah.
So that's an example of content that would be interesting, or it educates or inspires or whatever. And maybe you don't sell to the vast majority of people who see it, but you only need to sell to a small percentage, and you're going to do really, really well out of it.
I think, that's awesome, and a really great analogy with the whole pollution and suffocation going on right now. And I feel like we've almost taken a 360, from back in the day, traditional media, then the peak of, Facebook and Google advertising, let's call it 10, 15 years ago, probably 15 years ago now. Brand was neglected because it was all about getting the result, because it was such a cheap opportunity to get the result. So it was like, just get the ad out. So long as the cost per lead or whatever the cost per purchase was low, that didn't matter what the brand looked like. Now it's becoming harder. Now there is more suffocation, more saturation. I feel like we've now gone back to building great brands. And that's an important thing for people to consider, whether they are on the bell curve of needing to go through re-establishment, or whether at the start of the bell curve or of just starting out, is brand matters. Brand is probably one of the most important things to get right, and the connection to your customer before you start going out to market.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. So people get really confused on brand. They think it's colors or fonts or
a logo, yeah.
or stuff like that. So brand equity is really, what does someone pay over and above the intrinsic value of what you do? So there's time and materials, whatever the thing costs, and then what's someone going to pay over and above that? And so the more brand equity you have, the more you can charge for it. So if you look at an iPhone, I don't know, the time and the materials to assemble it is maybe a few $100s, right? But they're charging over $1,000 for it because that other 800 or whatever it is, that's brand equity, right? So it's because it's an Apple product. So the only point of you having a brand is really how much can you charge above the intrinsic value of what you do. And, we look at that in heaps of different contexts. We see that in cars, we see that in phones, we see that in literally everything. There's, you can go to Kmart and buy a t-shirt for $5, or you can buy basically the same t-shirt from a designer brand for $200. So that $195 is brand equity. And literally when you exit a business, if you sell a business, let's say for $10 million, you had $1 million of plant and equipment, you had $1 million of inventory, your accountant's going to write $8 million goodwill on the balance sheet. So goodwill is a great way to think about it. So what goodwill, what brand equity can you create? Because it seems kind of fluffy and conceptual, but it literally goes on the balance sheet when you exit the business, right? Your accountant will write $8 million goodwill.
Yeah, it's not just about the product, and a lot of common threads with a lot of successful brands we work with is exactly that. They've got brand equity, they've got goodwill, and they've got a story, and they've got a lot to tell outside of just the product.
And the other thing is now with AI, now with machine learning, now with robotics and everything like that, the value of what you do is getting lower and lower, of the intrinsic thing that you do. So, accounting services all start looking the same. Legal services start looking all the same. So manufacturing of whatever you manufacture or whatever else. So really it's the brand equity that someone's actually going to pay for.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, and that's exactly the shift that we're doing as an agency. It was sort of about the brand. Now it's more about the brand equity, and we're building another agency which will be a JV, so we don't have to then expand the different services. We can rely on other departments to do that. So technically we can become even though it's sort of going against the sort of rule of what we just spoke about before, staying in your own lane, that's exactly what we'll be doing, but with other partners in the same office, so it's like growth by collaboration. But that's going to naturally create a lot of goodwill, and then sort of bringing the personal brand with it is going to be a big part of that process. In terms of, I guess, other pain points that customers face, I'm sure you probably get a lot of feedback with people reading your book. What are the biggest mistakes, and what sort of like main lessons are they getting out of it?
Sure.
From the feedback of reading either the lean marketing or the one-page marketing plan?
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes people make, and it's something that's very, very difficult to fight against as an entrepreneur. Like everything inside you wants to widen the net. Let's launch to another market. Let's sell another product. Let's do more
international expansion.
More people. Yeah. So who's your market? Everyone, right?
The scaling thing, I think, is the biggest trap in having a business.
Yeah. So, and it's natural. Like I feel it sometimes. I'm like, oh man, we should launch this product or whatever, or we should launch to this market and all of that. But what I found is the more I narrowly focus on a particular market, the more I reduce the number of products that we have, and we significantly reduce. We probably reduce the number of products that we sell by 80%. The better we do, because you're laser focused. And if you think of units of energy, so if you've got 10 units of energy and they're scattered 10 different ways, you're going to make 1 unit of progress in each direction. Whereas if you've got 10 units of energy all focused in one direction, you're going to make 10 units of progress. So it makes a massive difference. So one of the discussions we always have with entrepreneurs is, around being very, very specific around target market. And it's more than just, hey, we do dentists or lawyers or a particular vertical. It's going multidimensional, meaning what are the trends going on in that industry? What are the demographics? What are the psychographics? All of those sorts of things. So if you can have a multidimensional view of your customer, you can now speak very, very specifically to their pain points. Otherwise, if you're going out with a general message and saying, hey, we do everything for everyone, that's not going to be attractive to anyone.
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost, in a population, and I think it's also really considerate around the country that you're in too. If you're going into America, you've got almost 500 million people there compared to Australia, you've got 25 million. So it might not necessarily be economical to serve one particular niche in a niche industry in Australia versus, say, in America where that might be more of a must. But yeah, proving the product or service first before starting to go out and do the international expansion is probably a key thing. I spoke at a Meta event a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of the topics. What are the steps to take for brands to expand internationally? And some of the takeaways there were, using things like Facebook ads library to spy on competitors, testing some basic level ads, and getting appetite before starting to set up manufacturing overseas. And just generally going over there and sort of speaking to other businesses that have already done in that market, because there are a lot of businesses that do sort of jump the gun, whether that is diversifying too much or going into a market without doing enough due diligence.
Yeah, or without being specific around their target market. And then if you have a look at your own Google search history or your own Google behavior or whatever, you're going to see that it's very specific. You're probably not typing in car into Google, right? You're typing in, Porsche Cayenne with 7 seats in San Francisco or whatever. Or, so you're looking for very, very specific stuff. You're not just typing in doctor, you're typing in knee specialist in Mornington or whatever, right? So all of your audience are typing specific stuff into a search engine, and whatever that morphs into. Currently it's Google. Who knows, down the track it may be Search GPT or Perplexity or who knows what, right? But I think search will always be around, and someone's going to type something very, very specific. And in fact, people are probably getting more and more specific, not less specific, with the stuff that they're looking for.
Totally, yeah. And there's a lot changing. Psychology, I feel, doesn't change as much.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the best brands who win the market are those who can understand human psychology of tapping into emotions and providing a solution to their problem, and communicating in that way. I think the technicality has definitely changed, and the mechanics around how we actually reach our customers, again, going from traditional to digital. But yeah, I think so long as you can understand the human psychology, the mechanics don't matter as much. There's plenty of people that can help you do that. So I think in terms of the platforms and the mediums, and I sort of consider it, at least from a deployment point of view, whether that is organic or paid, 3 main families: social media being one, search engines being another, and then display being, or programmatic being sort of a third one. And that's more on a digital level. Of course, you got your traditional mediums too. But where would you say, most brands should be sort of putting their focus, attention, and budgets into?
Yeah, so I was speaking at a conference of agency owners a few months ago in the US, and I said to them, in the age of AI and machine learning, the technical trickery that you do, they're all SEO people, PPC people, all of that sort of stuff. Do you think the value of your technical trickery is going up or down? And you could hear a pin drop, well, obviously it's going to go down. It's become easier to do all of that stuff. It's become frictionless,
100%.
and it's going to become more. So, back in the day, we had to do all of these weird backlink tricks and keyword stuffing and all of that sort of
Manipulating
stuff.
The algorithm, splitting out all the ads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now Google knows what we meant, right? Did you mean this or whatever? And also we see this on social, right? So we're not even bothering following people anymore. It's just showing up. It knows what you like based on your behavior. It shows up on your For You page. So the algorithm is trained to know what you like. You don't have to overtly even signal anything. It's just based on your scrolling behavior, and it's scarily accurate. It's like stuff comes up, and I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, and there's armies of PhDs designed to keep you on app longer and longer. So all of this technical trickery that we used to use to help us get on the front page, to get on the social media feed, to do all of that, that's becoming kind of democratized. It's kind of going away in the background. AI and machine learning is doing most of that. So then what gets left over? The stuff that gets left over is the fundamental stuff. So the right target market, the right message, the right offer, the storytelling component, the brand equity. So as an agency owner or as a business owner, that's the stuff that's actually going to matter going forward. Because previously, like if you were a clever tech geek and you knew how to stuff keywords and do backlinks and all of that, you could win based on that. You could get on the front page. But now the machine learning, the algorithms are getting so good that first of all, they're weeding out the gaming of the algorithms, but they're also now knowing what the consumer actually wants based on behavior.
At that SMB summit at Meta, the one I sort of was a panelist on, one of the other brand panelists mentioned that a good sort of way to look at it now is that content's become the new targeting. Machine learning, Performance Max and Advantage Plus is literally, like I said, it's replacing the need to have to do heavy manipulation of ad platforms, irrespective of whether it's social or search. So content's now the new targeting, which leads into brand as well.
Totally.
And I think if you're not spending enough time on building great content and diversifying that content and, replenishing that all the time, it doesn't matter what you're doing from a targeting point of view, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
With, I guess with AI creeping in and, new technology that's going to make some admin redundant, but at the same time also present lots of opportunities with saving time, therefore, to build, or to at least focus on things that you should be focusing on a business. What sort of AI tools or stuff are you doing within your business, or would you recommend?
Yeah. So I have a chapter on AI in lean marketing, and I talk about it as a tool that's going to give us a lot of leverage. So it's going to reduce the amount of labour. I record a podcast as well. Lean marketing podcast, and the amount of labor that we need to edit that and process it and do all that is much less than it would have been even a year ago, 2 years ago, because now there's tools that will, oh wow, the camera focus has switched, okay, it automatically knows, it automatically transcribes the stuff, and it's not perfect, but it gets you to 90%. So it's removed a massive amount of labor in terms of editing, transcribing, doing a lot of the stuff. Now, it's not 100% yet and may never be 100%, but if you can reduce your labor expenditure by 80%, 90%, whatever it is, that's massive, right? So,
and that's the way you should be thinking of it. Like the way that you hire, you shouldn't be looking at someone doing 100% of the job that you could potentially do. And it's subjective most of the times as well. I think a lot of people would probably agree the fact that if someone can do the job at a 70, 80% rate, it's better than you doing it all.
Of course.
And that's the only way to scale. You've got to have that mentality. Otherwise, you're just going to, perfection kills progress.
And it moves your labor up the value chain. So rather than someone spending all of their time just doing labor-intensive tasks like transcribing or finding the perfect frame or whatever, they're now thinking more about, okay, what's the storytelling, what's the narrative, what's all of that. So you're moving them up the value chain in what they're doing.
100%. And the way that we're sort of implementing AI, and particularly sort of with this whole shift into becoming more of a consulting agency, we sort of would still create original content and copy from an ad point of view. But then rather than sitting there and going, how can I split test this in 3 different ways or 5 different ways or 10 different ways, ChatGPT, so long as we can prompt it enough and have the right information from that client. We have non-public ChatGPTs for a lot of our clients as well, so they're already preloaded with the information. So rather than having to sit there, create original copy, and then having to then repeat that 3, 5, 10 times, ChatGPT can do that in a second.
Yeah.
So that's a really good trick from a copy point of view. When it comes to creative assets, same sort of thing. Opus, very well-known system. When we are trying to find more clips for podcasts, then we'll just go in and just, pump in different prompts and, all of a sudden we've got 10 clips to use for advertising.
Yep.
And I think not just using AI, I think people think AI is a tool that's going to replace people's jobs, but it's those that can wrangle AI that will replace people's jobs. So as long as you're using it in a way, and same as Ads Manager, anyone can create an ad on Google Ads or Facebook ads, but not many people can do it well, and not many people know how to troubleshoot it if it doesn't work. So it's combining the human touch with the technology to create a great outcome.
Totally. Probably shows my age, but I remember when teachers and parents were worried that spell check would make us dumb and not know how to use words or whatever. And so you're exactly right. AI is not replacing people, but people who use AI will be replacing people.
And I think that's the one main thing that people just have to chill out on a little bit. It's like, if you can leverage it, and like copywriters, for instance, Scott Bywater, our mutual friend, and I know that we sort of we see each other a lot in his community groups, and I've got a few other copywriter friends. I've already mentioned Alexi and a few others, but that was probably one industry and skill set that was probably at most risk when ChatGPT came out. But I know that they're sort of now on selling other services and products to help brands learn how to prompt ChatGPT. So it's just being able to leverage the technology and use it in a way that's going to innovate the industry. So if you're not doing it, you're going to be left behind. Simple as that.
Well, I see very little risk to a copywriter from large language models like ChatGPT.
If anything, it's a benefit. It's helping them. It's saving them time because individual copywriters, there's only so much copy they can write for brands. Now, all of a sudden, they might be able to triple their client list.
Well, the other thing, it's really good at kind of volume-based copy. Lots of volume and kind of poor or mediocre quality, right? But if you're just using it to copy and paste content, terrible strategy.
Oh, 100%.
But if you use it intelligently as a research assistant, as something that will, for example, when I was writing a book, I'm like, give me 10 examples of Silicon Valley companies that pivoted from their initial idea. That would have taken me maybe 2 hours with Google searches, with going through Wikipedia and all of that. But boom, it gives me that. So as a research assistant, or sometimes you're stuck for a word or a phrase and you say something like, give me 10 words that mean implementation or something like that. And then you're like, oh yes, that's the word I'm after. So if you're using it intelligently in your writing, it can give you a lot of leverage. But if you're just using it to pump out volume-based copy and paste, you're not going to get great results.
Yeah, if you're using it from a one-directional point of view and not probably going deep in the prompting, it's going to give you a mediocre outcome. Same as, poor brief, poor outcome. If you're briefing someone incorrectly, then you're going to produce a great piece of work.
And the other thing is understanding how it actually works. It's actually like a super advanced autocomplete, right? So if you give it the sky is, it'll predict that usually blue comes after that. So just by design, it's going to give you very cliched, very generalized content. It's not going to come up with, very creative stories or ideas or anything like that. That's for you to do. At least for now. Who knows down the track when we've got super intelligence or whatever, but I think that's a ways in the future. And
soon we probably won't even need to be jumping on podcasts ourselves. We'll just get some AI to do it for us,
true,
right?
True, maybe.
We'll be sitting. We'll be bored, mate. What can we do? But the one other interesting thing, and this is something that I didn't even sort of consider going into Europe next year. I haven't been since 2019. It was meant to go during COVID. So we're planning, my girlfriend and I are planning on going next year. And you can even, if you are sort of jumping around any sort of place for that matter, you can prompt it, go, what's the best itinerary from a travel point of view, without having to pinball too much, and it will just spit it out like that. So from a personal level, there's so much you can do to save your own admin outside of business. And I think, there's a lot of people out there that probably aren't that organised, and it can become your own sort of PA in a way.
Yeah, and for anything that's really structured content that has a right answer, like for example code, legal, accounting, it's super, super powerful, and it is for sure going to replace some people. But I think for creative tasks, at least now, it's not an issue.
There was an article I shared it the other week. Google's code is now based on, I think it was about 30% of AI.
Yeah.
So it's now starting to learn the code to upkeep the machine, which I think is incredible. Like, and we're only in the early stages. I mean, AI technically has been around for a long time. Machine learning has been around for over a decade. But I think the whole terminology of AI now cross sort of pollinating across lots of different things. Scary to think it's what's going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years, particularly with online jobs like digital marketing. It's going to be interesting.
And again, with coding, you're going to move up the value chain. I mean, the great coders were ones who knew how to code, who knew all the technical trickery, who knew how to run things in memory and all of this sort of stuff. Now the coding is going to be in plain language, natural language. So you're going to move up the value chain and think about, okay, market features, what do we need to integrate with and all of that sort of stuff. And that's how coding is going to be done. So it's just going to move up the value chain, just as we discussed with digital marketing.
That's right. And then, like I said, just it's going to save us time so we can really focus on brand and that equity and IP. If you were to start a business tomorrow, now knowing what you know and the technology out there, what would it be?
I would start with audience first. I think we're still early in the personal brand game, and I think that's going to be way, way more important. You know, when we have a look at some of the most successful businesses on the planet, they've usually got a very strong personal brand at the helm. So you think of a Tesla or a SpaceX, Elon Musk. You think of Virgin, Richard Branson. Apple is probably Steve Jobs, right? So, and to some extent Tim Cook, but having that front person at the front of the business with strong opinions, with personality, with all of that sort of thing. So whatever business I would start in the future, I would start first with personal brand and building the audience, because once you've got the audience, you know, as we've seen Mr. Beast launch whatever burgers and chocolate bars or whatever. He could launch literally anything, right? Because the thing is a commodity. And as we talked about before, what people are actually paying for is the brand, right? The brand equity. So you build the audience and you work on the product second, I think. So that's where we're going to go. And I think, like I said, I think we're early in the personal brand game. There are a few strong personal brands, but I think there's a lot of businesses that are hiding just behind a corporate entity and a corporate logo. And I think they're going to suffer. And the businesses that show up with an opinion, that are not afraid to be polarizing, that are not afraid to have personality and have that person at the helm or the face of the business, I think they're going to thrive. So I would be starting with, how do we build an audience? How do we build a tribe? And then figure out what's the thing that they want, or what's the thing that we're going to sell them.
It's like the Paul brothers. Look at what they've accomplished just from building that audience and their personal brand. You know, they've gone cross-facet industries. Couldn't even list the amount of products they have now between Prime, their boxing. You know, they've teamed up with Mr. Beast as well. You know, and they were just YouTube, personalities. So audience 100% wins, and I think that's one thing that's forcing the market's almost forcing people to become more personalities. You know, and I think there's a lot of fear. I think also a lot of people don't know how to communicate as well. So it does make it difficult for, say, the owner of a business, if they are building something, or even an existing business that might be handed down from a family, to get out there, because it is a sense of vulnerability. I think people are a little bit afraid of what to put out.
For sure.
I've discussed this with multiple guests about the importance and the power of personal brand. Everyone agrees that it is the number one most important thing you can do, particularly when you are starting out. And I think for anyone listening out there that, you know, is considering it, but sort of still on the fence, it doesn't matter. Like, people don't really give a fuck if you're going to post a bit of bad content, so long as you are iterating and continuing to refine and just continuing to stick at it, because you'll improve over time. And some of the content I've looked at when I first launched, it's just literally reading off a teleprompter and I look like a robot, you know. But if you're not going to start, it's, you know, what sort of measured grows, and practice makes perfect. And, you know, at the end of the day, as long as you are providing value, people are going to resonate with that much more than some blog that you've copied from another brand.
Yeah, and 100% you're going to suck in the beginning. But the good news is that you probably don't have a very big audience. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So not many people are going to see you suck, but as you get better,
That's
your
true.
audience will grow. So
As long as you're buying followers, but definitely don't do that.
yes. So the mechanism's inbuilt. It's great.
That's
I mean,
so true.
how better would you design it?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, sometimes when I do consult brands and they're just so concerned about what to post, I'm like, you literally have 100 followers, probably 80% of which are not going to even look at it.
Also, what I found is they're most usually concerned about their peers, not their customers. They're worried, what are my peers going to think of me, my industry, all of that sort of thing, especially more conservative industries.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, look, even if you do have no followers and you're either a successful business or a starting out business, it's still important to be on there because people do research. Again, with the amount of distrust, privacy issues, everything that's going on in the world right now from a digital point of view, touch points is what creates a sale and will speed up the sale.
Yeah.
So if you've got a healthy social media presence, if you've got personal branding, if your website's, doing its job, it's painting the picture of what we do from a specific point of view, and you're not, saying that you do everything to nobody. You got some good Google reviews, and your Google My Business is set up. You're easy to search online. Then that's going to build the credibility and therefore aid in the sale, irrespective of whether you're a service business or a product business.
Totally.
What sort of industries do you think get the most information, or do you have any sort of metrics around industries that read your books, or is it mixed?
It is mixed, but they tend to be, I guess, in quote marks, normal industries. So groups of medical, chiropractic, construction, legal, all of those types of businesses. They tend to be less kind of the Silicon Valley digital marketing businesses or whatever, although we do have some of those, but they tend to be people who are really good technicians at what they're doing. Often they may be multi-generational businesses, and the business owner maybe is a boomer, is looking to retire. His kids don't really want to be manufacturing screws. They become lawyers, or become psychologists or whatever. They're now thinking about succession, or how do I exit this business? And they're kind of that key linchpin. They're the rainmaker. They're the ones who go out, do all of the sales. They make all of the decisions. And now they're thinking about, okay, how do I create an actual saleable asset, or how do I scale this thing so that we can sell to private equity or whatever else? So we get a lot of those kind of businesses where people are just doing their thing. They're very successful at it. Maybe they've been doing it for many decades, and now they're thinking about, how do I actually have a systemized approach to marketing, because they've just been doing all of the labor over the years, and they're good at it, but they're either winding down or they've hit a growth plateau or whatever else. So
interesting.
I love working with them because we can make massive changes for those businesses, because they're doing a lot of things right from a service side, from a product side, and so now we just need to systemize the daily, weekly, monthly from a marketing perspective, put someone good in to just run the daily, weekly, monthly, and they get massive results.
So I'm sure that there's other things that you do for businesses, and books can sometimes be, again, a database builder and a bit of a loss leader. Loss leader meaning you go out and market something and say it's sub $50, and potentially it just covers the cost of advertising. If not, potentially you might even lose on the front end. But so long as you're getting that data and building that audience, and then seeding in, other services that will then make you money. What are some other things you're doing within, your businesses from the audience you're building?
So the main thing that we do is a marketing accelerator. So we basically help businesses and individuals master marketing. So we've got programs for businesses, we've got programs for individuals, and we, for businesses, we'll help recruit a marketing coordinator, we'll help train them, and we'll just get them doing the common things, right? So a lot of people think, a criticism I've gotten from some of my books is, hey, there's nothing new here. And I agree. Largely I agree. We've not come up with some mind-blowing concept or something that you would never ever think of. What we're saying is to do just common stuff like, it's a good idea to collect email addresses on your website. It's a good idea to nurture leads. It's a good idea to have content that entertains, inspires, educates. And most people would agree with all of that stuff, but common sense is not common practice. So we basically help implement that common sense. Have someone who just shows up daily. Okay, we decided it's a good idea to send an email newsletter once or twice a week. Great. This is a person who'll actually do it. Of course, there's a lot of nuance to it, right? So what do we write? Who do we send it to? How do we structure it? All of that sort of thing. So that's a lot of what we do. We basically help entrepreneurs and business owners and founders with the systems, the people, the processes to do the common marketing things that you should already be doing. It's a good idea to send email newsletters. It's a good idea to create content.
Yep.
It's a good idea to nurture leads, but you're not doing it because you don't have the systems and processes and all of that to do it.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of synergies between potentially what we could do with each other in our own agencies, or services, I should say. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see and learn a little bit more about what you're doing on the back end there.
For sure.
I mean, some sort of tips I'd like to ask, and again, it being difficult right now with what's going on in an economy from cash flow issues, Trump being elected, not that we're going to get into politics at all, but what are some tips and things that brands should look out for in 2025?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's things you can't control, and so we'll call that the wind. We can't control the wind, which way it might be a favourable wind and it's behind us, or it may be an unfavourable wind that's against us. So either way, we can't control that. But what we can control is the set of the sail, right? So, and what we do, we set our sail, and especially in harder times, a lot of people are cutting marketing budget, right? Which is a big opportunity, right? Advertising rates come down, you get a lot more cut through. So I would double down at a time when people are in fear or distracted with other nonsense and all of that sort of stuff, and just focus on who are we serving, really be very, very clear around your target market, build that audience, build that personal brand, tell your story, build all of that out, and don't worry about the rest. That's the wind that blows, and maybe it'll be favourable or maybe unfavourable. Either way, set your sail.
100%, yeah, and I agree with you. And this is what I've been telling a lot of brands that we work with is, where Q4 is typically quite an expensive period to advertise because everyone's going for the sale period. Black Friday, Cyber Monday coming up. Post that, CPMs and cost starts going down because Christmas holidays. As an Australian sort of region, a lot of people stop spending. But I think you should be doubling down, setting yourself up for campaigns to seed in your product or service into 2025 or the new year is the one most important thing that I think a lot of brands miss out on. They don't plan enough. A lot of people are planning right now for the sale period, but continuing to plan for Christmas all the way through to New Year, and seeding in. So then when you do start January, you're not going, holy shit, what do I do? Then all of a sudden it's February, and then people are starting to kick back into gear and it's mayhem already. So the preparation, I think, over that sort of holiday season is the most important thing to make sure that you are capturing the cost, the cheap cost of advertising and marketing over the break.
Well, and having your marketing calendar preloaded so okay, here's what we're doing in February, maybe it's Valentine's Day or whatever, Easter or whatever else. So you're clear around what you're going to do, what you've got preloaded, what you've got coming up for the whole year. And hopefully you've got it reasonably systemized, or if you don't, you probably should. That's an opportunity there for you to do so.
Yep. Plan to set yourself up for success, 100%. Yeah, I think like having a schedule, most people don't have it. They're sort of working either day to day or week to week. So yeah, organisation is just going to ensure that you're sort of creating the content, and content is one of those things, like I said, it's going to be the new targeting. So totally. It's not an easy process to come up with those ideas, create the content, iterate that content, test it. So if you're only doing it a few weeks before a sale period, you're going to miss the boat big time. Yeah, again, simple ideas, but they're not common practice. That's right. So aside from AI, some of the major shifts that we've seen, over the past sort of even year and decade, what do you feel is going to be the biggest shift in marketing over the next 3 to 5 years?
I'll reiterate, personal brand I think is going to be incredibly important. Storytelling. Storytelling I think is going to be absolutely key. That's something, how do you tell the story of what you're doing, who you're doing it for, how you deliver what you do. I think a lot less focus on the mechanics and the technical stuff. So really getting back to, and I love it is because it's made the one-page marketing plan much more relevant, because we start with, what is your target market? Let's go really deep into that. What's your messaging? So a huge lever that we have with the clients that we work with is working on their messaging. And sometimes we don't need to change anything else. They've got great product, great service. They know who their target market is, but their messaging is just falling flat, or it's boring, or it's not cutting through the noise, whatever it is. So really spending some time on your messaging. And there's a few different ways to do it, but your sales department, the objections that you get, can provide valuable data, but also your help desk. Your people are usually answering the same sort of questions, the same sort of issues are coming up, the same sort of problems and things like that. So, I tell most CEOs you should spend one day every month, or at least every quarter, just working in your help desk and working inside your sales team, and you will be shocked by the stuff that you discover that you thought was fixed, or that you thought, your sales team was selling it one way, but they're actually selling it a different way. The questions that come up that you think are obvious questions or whatever. Yeah. So spending a day each quarter or each month inside of your help desk and inside of your sales team is going to uncover a lot of data. Yep.
No, I completely agree. It's one thing that I've shifted in doing over the past couple of years. We got to a point where Simon, my business partner, and I delegated everything, and we sort of took a bit of a back seat and sort of, oversaw looking at the metrics, maybe didn't have the right KPIs, but probably weren't in the guts enough of the time. Actually sort of made myself redundant, which was great, but at the same time, I probably should have been sitting there, really looking under the hood a little bit more. And it wasn't until, I replaced my whole sales team with, myself to then uncover what was going on, to get the feedback, to then do market research and come up with new strategies of what people actually want, which then, completely changed the way that we sell, completely changed the way that we do our consultations, and, all the way through to changing our pricing model as well, and understanding what the market wants today. Because if you're not sort of keeping up with the market, one whole pricing model and way of selling is going to be very different to how it was done 2 years ago, and it's going to change again next year and the year after. So it's a great way just to go under the hood, almost put that silent COO hat. I know it was that show, remember? It was like, it was the mystery CEO. You'd go in and then sort of see what's going on and wear a disguise, and no one knew what he was, who he was.
It's so valuable, and I mean, you will discover so much stuff. And that's not to say you've got to do everything yourself.
Not at all.
But I mean, as a business scales and grows, there's usually more layers of management, more abstraction, and then by the time data and information comes to you, it's sanitized and cleaned up, and often not really reflecting reality. So having an ear to the ground, really understanding the what's happening market, and really understanding what's actually happening in your business with your clients, what the objections are, what the problems are. Super valuable.
So moral of the story and takeaways: get your hands dirty. Get out there, build a personal brand, no matter how shit you are.
Totally.
And keep iterating, because you'll get good over time.
Totally.
Yeah.
All good advice.
So before we wrap up, there's always sort of, with anyone who's in that entrepreneurial sort of space, business owners, there's a commonality between, family connection and also outside of that, general interests and hobbies. So I guess outside of your typical work week, how do you like to spend time with your family? What are some hobbies you get up to? What's a general sort of lifestyle look for Allan?
Look, I prioritise working out every day. So over the last few years, that's become a much higher priority. I used to not think health was that important, and I'd focus on business and all of that sort of thing. But really, I found that discipline starts with the body, and once you get your body right, almost everything starts to fall in place.
So if you're not treating yourself right, you can't treat others right.
Totally. I heard a quote. I can't remember who said it, but it was really good. It's like, when you get better, the lives of everybody around you get better. You know, if you're fitter, if you're stronger, if you're smarter, if you're, whatever, everyone around you benefits. All your family benefit, your employees benefit, your team benefit, all of that sort of thing. Conversely, if you're sick, if you're low energy, if you're all of that sort of thing, that's detrimental to all the people around you.
For sure, so, yeah. And I got told this a long time ago. It was, sort of a clairvoyant, sort of spiritual healer. And he said to me, he goes, if your body's off and your connection between your mind and your body is not synergized, you shouldn't be around an environment where you have to make a big decision.
Yeah.
If anything, you're probably better off taking time away from your team to get better before you start making big decisions, because you can make some really poor decisions if you're not feeling right, or if you're sick, or if you're not treating your body right. So I'm a big believer in being healthy, because if you got to put yourself first. And I always never understood the analogy of if the plane goes down and the oxygen tank, you got to put the oxygen on yourself first before you help someone else.
Totally.
And that's the same way you should be looking at business and life, for sure.
Yeah.
Last question: if you could be, if you jump in a time machine and look back and give yourself any advice with your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
I would say, look, dude, chill out. Life's rigged in your favour, right? So don't stress so much. I mean, I think I spent a lot of my 20s just stressed out, working like crazy, all of that sort of thing. Yeah. And it definitely had its benefits, and I did well out of it or whatever. But I spent too much time anxious about the future. So I would be like, just chill out, dude. Like, life's rigged in your favour. It's all going to work out. And it kind of annoys my wife now, when she'll come with a problem and I'm like, it'll work out. Like, life's rigged in our favour.
Trust the process. Yeah. Unfortunately, us entrepreneurs live in this whole planning for the future and not living in the present too much. But that's great advice. Yeah, just chill out and take a back seat and trust the process.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, mate, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure chatting. Congratulations on the second book. Looking forward to reading it, and looking forward to all the success that is lined up for you for the next 5 to 10 years, and looking forward to chatting again.
Oh, thanks so much.
Cheers, Allan.